Good afternoon and welcome. It's 1 p.m. and 1 p.m. is our go live time, and we're so excited to have you all in the room with us. We're going to give it a minute or so more and just allow a few more people to enter the room before we dive right into this afternoon session, which is self-care, sleep care, and everything in between. And the everything in between is going to come from each of you that's joining us in conversation this afternoon. I will go into introductions and I'll let you know how the session's going to flow. But before I do, I'm going to head across to Facebook and push the go live button so we can share this live to Facebook. And even if you've got your cameras on, that is wonderful. You are not going to be on the live stream on Facebook, so you can put your cameras on and you can smile and you can do whatever you'd like to. It's just we've got Henriette and myself that will be on the go live screens on Facebook, so please don't stress about that. So I think it's time, and we're going to dive right in. So welcome to the session this afternoon. Henriette and I are so excited to be hosting all of you and talking about something that is so important. And in fact, the reason we're talking about it today, and we're talking about sleep and self-care, is because we're seeing so many of the adverse effects showing up in workplaces and amongst friends and family members that I think it's important, and Henriette thinks it's important, that we're actually having more of these conversations. So good afternoon, and you're most welcome to the session with us this afternoon. Won't you please head on into the chat box? So you'll see a little chat box on your screen. Head into the chat box and say hello and let us know where you're joining us from this afternoon. And then we'll get the conversation going. So we've got Virginie and Arno and Marie and Christo and Vishani. Let us know where you're joining us from. Pop a note into the chat box, say hello. And as we go through the session, if you've got a question or an insight or a story to share, pop it into the chat box and we'll invite you to unmute and share. We're a small group in the live Zoom room. Let's make it interactive and engaging, and let's allow you the opportunity to ask any question you might want to ask. Obviously, self-care, sleep care relates to everything in between the self-care and the sleep care. So if you've got a question, you feel free to pop it into the chat and then we'll pick it up as well. So I am Usha Maharaj. I'm a coach and a mentor and a facilitator and a speaker. My background is in corporate, where I spent 16 years in a Big Four audit firm. 6 of those years were as a director in the Big Four audit firm. And I'm talking about self-care and sleep care and all things to do with really just taking care of yourself in August this month, throughout the month actually, because I've been seeing firsthand, working with my clients who are, working in high-performing workplaces. I've been seeing firsthand the strain that all of the extra balls we're having to juggle and the stresses that we've got around us, firsthand how it's been impacting people negatively. So if we can do something, say something, share something to help, then that's exactly what we'll do. And that's what we're all about this month in August, which just happens to be Women's Month as well. So I want to introduce my partner and colleague in today's discussion, Henriette Joubert, who is a very special woman on a very special mission, all about really just utilizing her experiences and her knowledge to help us all sleep better and to help us toward a more rested, peaceful sleep. But Henriette, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, and then let's allow the conversation to flow thereafter. Henriette.
Thank you, Usha. That's lovely. Thank you for the introduction so far. Yes, so I do lie detecting for a living, which has been a key point in understanding the balance of the human nervous system. And it's actually from that point where a couple of months ago, maybe about a year ago, where I discovered for myself that going into menopause, the stresses of work, the stresses of lockdown, that my sleeping patterns had changed desperately. And going into the background of my lie detecting work, the approach on how to do a lie detecting test, that gave me the ability to understand what it is that my body is asking for me so that I can sleep better. And of course, as we know, if you're not sleeping well, everything is affected. And that is the short of my story, is that everything of my life, my cognitive function, my irritability, mood swings, what I ate, what I didn't eat, everything started changing when I couldn't sleep anymore. And approaching sleep care became such a priority for me, because I realized that it had such a knock-on effect on everything else in life. So again, thank you again for this opportunity to have a chat with everyone.
Excellent. Thanks, Henriette. So we've got in the room with us, in the Zoom room, and this is streaming live on Facebook as well, but in the Zoom room, we've got Virginie from Johannesburg, and Diane from Bryanston, and Vishani from Durban, and Crystal from Pretoria. Arno from Durban. So Durban's winning today. KZN's winning. I'm Pietermaritzburg, so I'm going to add my vote into my vote into KZN as well. So we've got KZN winning here, and then we've got Adolf from Kruger, Lowveld, Limpopo, from Limpopo in South Africa. That's excellent. So welcome, everybody. So Henriette, you said that when we're not sleeping, so we're not getting enough good quality sleep, that it impacts us in various spheres of our lives. So what are some of the problems and challenges, or what are some of the outcomes that we can expect to see in someone who is not getting enough quality sleep in their lives? How do we see it showing up in a person?
So it has a building up effect. So when you first don't sleep well, you're not really going to notice it. You may have a few yawns here and there. You may want to have an afternoon nap. But as it accumulates, we'll begin to see changes in our hormone systems, our endocrine system will start being affected by it. The way that our brain is able to think and remember, all of those things will be affected negatively. Of course, besides the physical tiredness, our listening skills will be a lot slower. The way that we understand and comprehend will be even slower. So making sure that we have a pattern of sleep that we can stick to. So we have a specific starting time, a specific ending time. That's very important. And then obviously the cycles in between, but we'll probably get to that still.
So I know that when I do not have enough sleep, it shows up in very interesting ways, and my family knows to look out for it. So one of the things that I think it's really important is that first we've got to understand ourselves so well. We've got to understand how we recharge our batteries, and then we have to remember to make sure that we're doing it. Because if I don't get enough sleep, I am one of those people that turns into just a very crabby, irritable, almost frustrated type of person. But even more than that, what does happen is, because in the space that I work in, one of the things that I have to be able to do all of the time is problem solve. So when I'm in a mentorship discussion and even a coaching discussion, and I've got a client who's sharing, and most of my clients are working through challenges that they're experiencing at a point in time. And they're presenting a challenge, and they're talking about what's going on in their lives and how they're experiencing it in their lives. If I am not mentally sharp, I will never be able to connect them back to solutions. I'd never be able to ask them the questions that will get them to work themselves toward the solutions that they need in life. So for me, sleep is vitally important, because if I don't recharge my batteries, first, I'm not the funnest person to be around to my poor family. But second, there is no way that I'd be able to serve my clients in the way that I do. And then over and above that, when you're in a space where you have to be creative and you have to be thinking about where to from here, and thinking into the future and connecting the dots strategically, if you've got a foggy mind, there's absolutely no chance that you're going to ever be able to get to the best solutions. So sleep is vitally important. It shows up differently for each of us in terms of how we're responding and reacting and how we're behaving when we lack sleep. So those are some of the ways that it shows up in my life. But then it also affects performance and productivity. Now, I don't know if anyone in this room and anyone attending on the live is working with teams of people and groups of people. And if we're not actively looking at how can we help people to sleep better, just something simple that we can change in their lives, it's going to affect their performance and productivity in the same way that it would affect our performance and productivity. Now, when we think about it from a self-care perspective, how do we connect it back to a self-care perspective? If we're not working at our peak performance levels, or at least close to peak or at a high performance level consistently, and if we just think about all of the extra responsibilities that we've got on our plates today than we did 2 years ago, and you know, a lot of the responsibilities that got added on when March 2020 clocked by, it's just doubled and trebled for some of us, the amount that we're needing to juggle and deal with. And if we're not taking care of something as basic as sleep, as important and vital as sleep, and if we allow it to affect productivity and performance, we then need a significantly greater number of hours in the day to get done the number of tasks that we're having to deal with. So that's the way where I'm seeing it showing up a lot. And a lot of clients are saying that a couple of things are happening. So first, they're not doing the routine sleep that you're suggesting, Henriette. So, you know, the fixed start and the end time to your sleep. So they're not able to get into that routine pattern. But a lot of people are also talking about going to sleep. So maybe we're going to sleep at a certain time, but waking up in the middle of the night. So, yes, you know, you're constantly, you're asleep, and then the next thing you're awake again, and then going to sleep, but not being able to get the full number of hours in. So what have you seen from an experience from that perspective, and what sort of tips do you have for someone who might be struggling with that? And before you answer, Henriette, I'm going to go into the room and just ask that if you're attending the live, if you've experienced a challenge from a sleep perspective, or if you know somebody who's experiencing a challenge, pop that challenge into the chat box, and let's see if we can come up with a tip or a strategy that might be able to help you or somebody that you know. So let's go, Henriette, over to you.
Okay, so it's a very, very good point, and it is something that I myself have also had a dance with, is this going to sleep, sticking to a time. So I know anything between 9 and 10, I usually get to bed, or I make my way to the bedroom. And then I would have a good, say, 2-hour slot of sleep, and then suddenly I'm awake and thoughts are running through my mind. The very, very first thing I would like to give as a tip, and actually there are two. The first one is, do not reach for your device. Do not reach for your phone. Do not reach for your tablet, your notepad, your laptop, whatever. Stay away from your electronic devices. Not only because of the stimulation of the brain that's going to start happening again, but the device emits blue light. Blue light stimulates the eyes. The eyes are connected to the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve immediately wakes up the body, brings you out of homeostasis into a state of alert and awakeness. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to wake yourself up to such an extent that your vagus nerve has been stimulated. If you do wake, that's okay, but keep the room dark, quiet, cool. Keep the room cool. Don't reach for a device. And then, of course, the other thing is whether your clock is electronic or a normal old-style clock. Do not look at the clock. Do not see what time is it, how much longer have I got to go, how much sleep did I get in, because looking at the clock also stimulates the vagus nerve, takes you out of homeostasis, and of course, immediately you're awake more, and it's going to, your attempt to go back to sleep is going to acquire even much more focus.
So those are two really good tips, right, Henriette? But I'm already squirming here in my seat because I know that you've now challenged the two. It's like almost the auto reflex response is your eyes open and you pick up the device. And when you look at the device, what is the first thing that you see? It's the clock on the screen. And there we go. Brady is guilty as charged. Now, I don't know if any of you attending have got that. It's almost like a knee-jerk response. You just pick it up and you look at it, or you look at a clock somewhere close by if you have one in the room somewhere. It's just, we always as human beings want to peg something to a specific time. You need to tie it back to the time. And we would be looking at how many hours left, how many this. Now, the other thing that it's going to be doing, now you spoke about blue light, and I've been wanting to know a little bit more about blue light and the impact, because I've heard that and read a little bit about you having to cut out the blue light before going to bed, and there are blue light blockers and all of these fancy things available to help you to do that and to make sure that you're not getting in too much of blue light and stimulating yourself. But the other thing that's happening, right, you look at your clock and immediately you realize I've only slept for 2 hours. I'm so tired, I'm exhausted. And or you realize that I've got so much to get done in my day ahead. And how am I going to now cope? And what that does within us is it triggers a stress response. So a part of our brain that's responsible for the stress response wakes up. And when we're in that stress mode, because now we are feeling stressed, we're feeling anxious because we know that if we don't rest, we're not going to cope the next day. And we're so tired because we've been building up all of these days. And we know that now that we've got all of this running through our minds, the stress response is going to trigger either a fight, flight, or freeze mode in us. And when you're in that sort of state, it's difficult to let go of everything and to relax and to allow your brain to just quiet down and go back into sleep mode. Because now we're stressed about not being able to sleep. And then we start to think about other things that stress us out. So we're thinking about the first meeting of the day, and then how busy our diaries are, and how many reports are due, and what projects are on our calendars, or we've got to get kids ready for school in the morning, so we can't afford to go back to sleep too late, or we might as well not sleep. So we go into that space of we're attracting so much more to be stressed about. So how do we then quieten the mind and calm it down? So what can you advise somebody who's in that spiral?
Okay, so the first thing is, before you actually enter the spiral, is your phone shouldn't be next to your bedside table. It shouldn't be charging next to your bedside table, not for the electronic emissions that it's giving off, and also not to, how shall I say, it's also to assist you to not want to reach for it, to look at the clock. I understand that there is a level of anxiety that if I can't reach my phone, I'm not in touch of what's happening. I don't know where I am time-wise. But even that mindset is the key to that downward spiral. The idea is that if the phone is not near the bed, and I'm not looking at the clock, and I'm not being stimulated by the blue light and the electronics, then hopefully I haven't yet knocked on that door to enter into that spiral. If you do wake and you did look at the clock and you did look at the phone, the first thing that you could do, once you've caught yourself, because first of all, we need to say, hang on a bit, I'm starting down this little road and I need to stop myself, is to breathe. Deep breathe. Slow in, hold, slow out, hold. Couple of breaths. And that should, if you allowing yourself, if you're giving yourself the permission to not go down the rabbit hole, that should allow you to relax, go back to sleep. But of course, maybe it might take a little bit more extra, not necessarily discipline, but more as a care of a form of self-care, a form of self-love. And that is to lie on your back, make sure that your pillow's well positioned underneath your neck, so that your neck and your head is well supported, that your shoulders are actually touching the bed. And then the deep breathing. So slow in, hold, slow in, hold, or slow out, hold. If you do that a couple of times, you should be able to not continue on that downward spiral.
Good tips. I think what we do need is to remind ourselves to actually, that self-awareness is so important, is to catch yourself, and to catch yourself before you spiral out of control, and then do something to bring yourself back into the present moment, and to be able to get out of it. Before I add a couple of tips to that, because I have children who occasionally, teenagers, and it's very rare, so rare, they're lucky, that they're struggling to fall asleep at night, or if you wake up in the middle of the night, what you do. And then also what I do, and how I prevent that whole staying awake thing that happens occasionally. But Virginie has put an interesting point in the chat, and I'm going to pick it up. So she says, there's a positive way to use the checking of time. I do check the time so that I can see from a Chinese meridian perspective which of my organs are possibly out of balance, based on which organs are active during that time, and it works into our time bands. I think that is incredibly interesting. Brilliant. So thank you so much for sharing it. And it comes back to awareness. Why are we doing what we're doing? So thumbs up to you, Virginie. That's an interesting point there, and I'm even intrigued enough that I'm going to go research it. So you can pop me an email with links and tell me how to research this, because I think that is incredibly interesting. But it comes back down to purpose. Why are we doing what we're doing in the moment? If in our mind we understand the purpose, it allows us to connect very differently. If we're looking at the time, and then we start thinking about all that we have to do, we're losing time, we're so tired, you bring more anxiety into your life. If you're looking at your time and you're saying, okay, I understand this whole other side of it. So your Chinese meridian knowledge that you're bringing into this, I'm going to look, and I'm actually going to take care of my body. It's giving me a signal here of how I care for myself. That is a completely different context with which you're looking at it. And the context that we deal with absolutely anything is really going to enable us to either move forward or get stuck in that moment. So is it going to put us into fight, flight, freeze response, or is it going to help us out of it and really just add some purpose to it? We've got Krugers who's saying, there's over-the-counter medicine that can help and is not habit forming. Should you also change the pillows every 6 months? Now, pillow talk, I think that's an interesting one, because I want to know this as well. My pillows, I don't change every 6 months. They're still fine. So, when and why, and should we change pillows? And I don't know, Henriette, I know now we're like stepping so out of the bounds with you, but if you have an answer for that, you can share it in a minute. But I wanted to share a couple more tips. So if you wake up in the middle of the night, or you're struggling to fall asleep, and you can try these as well. So breathing, absolutely essentially important. Now, when I said what happens is, if we're starting to activate that stress response inside of us, we want to be calming it down. And these techniques will help you to do that. The self-awareness, catch yourself and say, okay, I know I'm awake. I need to go back to sleep now. So let's just calm everything down and go back to sleep. So talk to yourself, let yourself know it's okay. And you actually, it's time to go back to sleep now, to rest. And then breathe. When you're breathing, focus on your breath. So notice the breath going in and notice the breath going out. And what we're doing there is we're forcing our mind out of all of the that's just the volume of thoughts that start to creep in, and the stresses, and we're forcing our minds away from that to something that is very easy to focus on. So it's just the breath in, the breath out, and then grow the awareness that you've got to your entire body. So, when we start to pay attention to our bodies, some of us have, even during the day, when you've got that intense focus and you're so attentive to something, all of our muscles seem to contract. You pull your face in and your body starts to tense and tighten up. And even when we're lying in bed, when we've got so much going on, when we're stressed about things without even knowing we're stressed about it, it's taking its toll on us, you start to feel it in your body. Parts of your body are just going to be so tight and so closed off. Notice it and ask it to relax. So just, give yourself the permission to relax, stretch out your body a little bit, just, allow yourself to just loosen up a bit. And even now, if you just take awareness of what's going on in your facial gestures. When we're concentrating and we're so focused, we tighten up, we start to frown, we clench our jaws, everything starts to tighten up. when we're tight and we're closing off and we're pulling everything together, we're automatically sending signals to our brain that we're in a stress mode, we're in a high tense situation. And it's difficult for your brain to send all of the calming good stuff to your body to allow you to go back to sleep. So use your body to send messages to your brain to say, I'm calm. So now you're working it backwards almost. So you're utilizing, you're layering it on and saying, this is how I'm going to manage to get through this. And then think about nothing other than your breath until you fall off to sleep. Or if you must think about something, you can repeat an affirming statement that you might use, an affirmation that you're using, something that is calming and soothing and feels good to you. And you can maybe repeat that in your mind, but nothing other than that. So don't think about the next day. And if your mind drifts, pull it back in again, so that you can just calm yourself down and allow yourself to just relax and hopefully go back to sleep again. Henriette, please pick up the pillow question if you do have an answer or a thought on that.
Yeah, so pillows and actually the bedding as well as the mattress, it's also obviously very important to the quality of sleep that we're getting. I don't know that it hasn't been necessary for me to replace my pillows every 6 months. Having said that, I also know it's because when I bought my pillows, I bought really good quality pillows with the purpose that if this item is something that my head, my shoulders, my neck is going to be resting on for 8 hours, hopefully, continuously, I'm going to want to give it the best that I can afford, the best that I can get hold of. And so they have lasted for me. So I don't know that it's necessarily timing, the age of the pillow, but it most certainly is the quality of the pillow and how it is able to support your neck. What I do also know with regards to pillows is that I don't think we pay enough attention in the way that we connect with that pillow. So ideally, when we're lying down on the side or on our back or the other side, the shoulders should be touching the mattress. The pillow shouldn't be also behind your shoulders, because what that creates is a level or a continuous planking effect, which does not give the neck and the head the correct support. So to make sure that the shoulders are on the bed and the pillow is actually behind the neck and the head on. Of course, we also need to make sure that the pillows are not too high and they're not too flat. If they are flat, maybe 2 pillows in a pillowcase. But to make sure that the head doesn't, so if we're lying on our side, so the head doesn't drop too much this way, because once you're asleep, this position, your neck's going to freeze into it. So this is going to stretch, this is going to shorten, and we all have a favorite side to sleep on. So eventually you're going to worry, why, you wake in the morning, so why am I stiff? Why is my head like this all the time? And it's because you're in that position most of the time. So we need to make sure then that our pillow, the quality really is there to support.
So pillows sound like an investment, right? We spend money on the arbitrary things. We would spend money to go to a coffee shop, buy a delicious cappuccino and a slice of chocolate cake. But if we just cut out the cappuccino a few times and saved up that money and invested in the pillow, we would have something that's going to give us lasting benefits, that's going to help us to recharge. And when we talk self-care, that is what self-care is about. It's about understanding and implementing strategies that are going to give you long-term benefit, that once you've put it in place, you don't even have to think about it again. You've done it. Now it's just about maintaining it and managing it and then taking it forward. But until we have that awareness around it, it's difficult to go take the action. And that's what I think we're raising today, is just awareness about some of the steps that we can take. Bernie, Kruger's Virginie saying, there we go, Virginie's popping nice comments into the chat box. Thank you. Anybody else with ideas and thoughts and questions, please use the chat box freely. So regarding pillows, Virginie says, I found it very useful to improve my sleep by having 2 pillows, a good orthopedic one for my head and another to place between my legs or under my knees. These help to have good posture and support for the back and spine. I hear you. Works very well.
Definitely. I do the same.
Definitely helps with getting the posture in right and all of the alignment that you need to get a good night's sleep. So it's just about tweaking little things that can help us to get a good night's sleep. That is just so important. Henriette, you've got a sleep program. So an online, and this is how we connected in the first place, is around this content that you've got available, that you put together to help people to just get into the zone so that you can start to enjoy a good night's sleep. Tell us about the program that you've got, Henriette.
Thank you, Usha. So the whole idea is that by the time that we're heading to the bedroom, hopefully we would have stopped stimulating our autonomous nervous system. We would hopefully have not been watching TV too late or working too late. The lights in our rooms would hopefully have been dimmed already, or at least softer light, if that's at all possible. But the idea is that when we get to bed, we should already be in a place of balance, a place of calm and peace. But that often is not the case. So the program that I've been developing, or that I have developed, is a guided preparation to deep sleep. So it's a little program where you are visually and audially by sound guided on things to do to calm the body, calm the nervous system, calm the mind. I would like to actually come back to what I was mentioning earlier about homeostasis, because what my program addresses is exactly what is stimulated when we go out of homeostasis. So you mentioned fight, flight, or freeze. So fight and flight and freeze are 2 different sections from our parasympathetic nervous system. The way to get ourselves, if we happen to be in a state of freeze. Now, it sounds traumatic to be in a state of freeze. It's like, but we don't actually need to experience trauma to be stuck in a state of freeze. To be perpetually in a state of stimulated adrenaline release all day long means that by the time we go to bed, we have like a watered down version of freeze. So we're numb, we're not feeling anything, we can't think, that type. So the way to get ourselves deactivated from the freeze part of our autonomous nervous system is to move the body. So in this guided preparation, we do some movements. We're releasing tension in the shoulders, the neck, the arms, the belly, the hips. And we do this through dancing. The next section of the guided preparation is to stretch the muscles, because stretching the muscles releases or brings us out of the parasympathetic of your fight or flight. So when we're able to release and soften the body, bend over, be more supple, that brings us out of that. Then the next phase of that guided preparation is deep breathing, a couple of exercises in deep breathing, and that is to put you smack bang into homeostasis, balanced, calm, relaxed. The minute that your device stops working, hopefully it's over there and not next to your bed, the minute the device stops working, you're already off to dreamland.
Excellent. So when Henriette and I first talked about this program of hers, and she said, oh, it's movement and it's dance and it's, it's breathing. And I said, Henriette, it sounds like a lot of work before going to bed. Like now I've been busy all day long and now you want me to, it almost sounds like I've got to do exercise right before going to bed. But it's not, right? It's using your body and really just allowing your body to release the stress of the day. And allowing yourself to free up those knots and all of the stuff, that the tension that we hold on to, so that we can move into that space where we're now saying, okay, I'm preparing for bed, and then I'm in bed and now I'm going to sleep. So it's the only thing that's left to do is to go to sleep. So we prepared. It's like when you go to university and you study and then you get into the job, the thing that's left to do is to actually do what you've been preparing for all of those years. And that's the sleep routine. It sounds like it's now we're preparing to go to sleep, which is excellent.
Correct.
Marie,
in my view, that taking the time to do the whole program, part of the program, 5 minutes of the program, it doesn't matter, but that is the ultimate self-care.
Exactly. So it's doing the things that are going to give us that gift of just the peace and the calm and the quiet and the rest and the relaxation that we can rejuvenate our minds. And when we need to get to the grind and get the work done and juggle all those balls, that we're actually at our peak and we can do it, mind is clear, no foggy brain, and we're able to get it done. Marie says Henriette's system works like magic. The first time she tried it, she slept like a baby and woke up brand new the next day. Okay, so there we go. Some testimony to the program itself. So I was really excited about the program. And the reason I was is because a lot of the clients I'm working with are talking to me about sleep issues, are really struggling to go to bed and to stay asleep. And if we're not allowing our batteries to recharge, how do you wake up and do the important work that you need to do the next day? How do you not get frustrated having to balance working and having all of these online meetings with kids that now need you to help with homework and teachers that are saying, please make sure your child submits this on time, and the boss that's trying to phone you or message or WhatsApp you, and then you've got to cook dinner, and then you've got to do this, and you've got to do. So we've got so much that's just piling on. And if we aren't sleeping like a baby at night, then how exactly do we prepare ourselves the next day? And like you're saying, Henriette, caring for ourselves and our sleep and protecting it, really protecting it and making sure that we're taking the steps to get that good sleep is the ultimate act of self-care, which is why we've bundled in the program, this online program, which can be accessed from anywhere at any time, bundled it into a self-care challenge that goes live at the end of August. So registrations into a 15-day self-care challenge are now open and accessible to absolutely anybody who'd like to join, where we will be going through on a daily basis tips and tools and strategies to help you implement self-care in your daily regimen and help you to implement it in a way that's practical and simple and not in a way that's going to take just hours and hours up of your time. And while you're doing that, it's also about making sure that you're taking care of your sleep, because if you're not sleeping well, you're going to be feeling unhappy and frustrated and miserable a lot. We want to get rid of that. We want you feeling at your best self by the end of the 15 days. So it's a 15-day self-care challenge that starts at the end of this month. And I will tell you a little bit more information in a bit. So we've got a question here about herbal teas, chamomile, etc., helping to calm and relax. When should you bath or shower? Just before you. So let's talk about the herbal stuff, the teas and the the calming stuff that we can drink and to get us into the mood for sleep. And then when do we stand under that shower? When do we take that glorious hot long shower or that soak in the tub? And how does that link back to good night's sleep, Henriette?
So I'm not one for taking medication to help me to go to sleep. I have been desperate enough to consider it, and hence the creating of the program. But I do very much support the idea of herbal tea, some essential oils in a diffuser, because they really do have an effect on the autonomous nervous system. So whatever we can drink and whatever we can inhale, and a diffuser next to your bed, that's allowed, most certainly. There are a few essential oils that work really well, but each of us, we differ. And I would suggest that a short list of essential oils that we can use in a diffuser would probably include chamomile, but it's there are some interesting other essential oils that we can also use. But it's not to say that chamomile is going to work for everybody. So we need to that you can find samples at your local discount or your supplier, whoever you buy your oils from, and just take a little whiff to make sure that this is one I like. Your body will tell you immediately, go, oh, no, yes, no. So to use that, and it comes back to self-care. It comes back to turning inwards, to listening to what the body is telling you, to what my body is telling me, what your body is telling you. Is that awareness, is that our sense of smell is one of our strongest senses of of self-preservation. And so just to test what is going to work for me today, or and have a couple available, because maybe today this works and maybe tomorrow that one works better. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. And like you're saying, Henriette, it's all about knowing what works for you. So there is no one size fits all model. When it comes to self-care, first understand ourselves, understand our bodies, understand what we like and what we don't like, and what works for us and what doesn't work for us. And something might work for one person and might not work equally well for you. So it's really about just getting to know yourself really well, testing out what works for you, and then doing it from the place of just helping yourself to get the best out of life, feel fulfilled and happy and rested and relaxed and rejuvenated, and your mind working 100% sharp. Diane says, I was told pumpkin seeds assist with sleeping. Diane, all I know about seeds is that nuts and seeds are good for you, so you incorporate them into your diet. And I've heard all sorts of things about pumpkin seeds. Henriette, really quickly, is there something stand out linked between pumpkin seeds and good sleep?
Not that I'm aware of, I have to say so, Diane. Thanks very much for that input. The only thing I would like to add on to that is, and it comes back to drinking an infused tea as well, and that is to not take anything, to consume anything at least 2 hours before going to bed. Because your system has to process, and that process is keeping you in a wakeful state. And of course, during the night, your bladder is going to wake you up again. So 2 hours before you go to sleep is to stop any consumption.
Absolutely. And give yourself, your body, a chance to process food as well, because body just needs a lot of hours to digest and to do its job. And when we stop eating for that window, when we go into sleep, it actually just helps our bodies to process and to get it, work it through our systems and absorb all of the nutrition that we need from it. So yes. Henriette, I'll come back to you for closing comments in a minute. And if any of you have got a question, now's the time to pop it into the chat box, or an insight that you'd like to share with us, or even a suggestion that you'd like to share with everybody. So pop it into the chat box and I'll pick it up, because we're going to move to close in another few minutes from now. So I want to just, before we close today's session, tell you all about a self-care challenge that I'm running. So I've talked about it already. It's called the 15-day self-care challenge, which is going to be running in a private Facebook group. The first session starts on the 5th of September, and the point of the self-care challenge is to help you to understand that your self-care is in your hands, the power to really just completely transform how you're thinking about how you care for yourself, how you're putting yourself first in life, how you're taking care of your body, how you're taking care of your overall well-being is entirely in your control, and helping you through providing daily tips and tools and strategies and actions that you can take very quickly in order to start to really invest and put yourself through first through that journey. So everything happens online through a Facebook group, a private Facebook group. There'll be daily activities shared with you, which you can do and at any time in the day, and it shouldn't take you more than 15 minutes a day. But in that, it's about learning about ourselves, so deepening our level of self-awareness, understanding how what's happening around us during the day and at night triggers us into a state of a state that is averse to our natural state of productivity and performance.
Yes.
The self-care challenge is 265 rands, and I'll pop a link into the chat box. If you're keen to join, then have a look at it and join us on the challenge. And like I said, through the challenge, Henriette's sponsored to everybody that attends her first module of the deep sleep program, as well as other modules of the program to lucky draw prize winners. So there's just a lot that will be happening in the self-care challenge, but all of it kept very simple and straightforward and to the point and practical, so that you can implement and start to see a difference in your own life. So I'm going to pop that link into the chat box. Please feel free to have a look at it after today's session and then join us. We'd love to see you inside the self-care challenge. Henriette, closing comments from you.
I would just like to add that it's been an absolute privilege to be here with you to talk about self-care and sleep care. Of course, the two go so strongly hand in hand that it's almost impossible to separate them. And I would encourage anybody who's having any kind of sleep problems, sleep breaking in your sleep, is to stop. Stop, slow down, breathe, turn the attention inward and listen.
Excellent. Excellent closing advice. Thank you, Henriette. And I've got a question from Marie. So the self-care challenge includes a deep sleep tutorial. It absolutely does. So every single person joining us on the self-care challenge gets access to the deep sleep tutorial. All happens online, arrives in your mailbox, and you'll be able to participate and learn and then implement some of the strategies that you have learned through the tutorial as well. Henriette, thank you for joining me this afternoon and sharing your advice and tips and tools and experience when it comes to sleep. It is so important to take care of yourself because if we don't take care of ourselves, there is just no way that we're going to be able to be our best versions of ourselves to our family and friends and our colleagues at work. There's no way that we're able to deliver at the level of performance and productivity we need to in order to get through all of the responsibilities that we've got on our plates right now. So putting yourself first is just so important. Learning how to manage the stress, the anxiety, the overwhelm, taking care of your bodies and your minds and your spirits are vitally important. So I'd love to see you all on the challenge. And if not on the challenge, then please just keep in touch. Keep in touch with the community. Engage with us on social media. You can find Henriette on Facebook and you can find me everywhere. So Henriette's on LinkedIn and Facebook, and you can find me on pretty much all of the social media channels. And I recorded a webinar yesterday, in fact, and loaded it up onto YouTube today. So if you want to go ahead and have a look at it, it's about self-care, but in there I share quite a lot of stats, global stats around the impact of self-care on productivity, on performance, just the levels of stress that we're experiencing globally. And maybe some of that will resonate with you as well. Virginie, who's a golden source of nuggets, has shared some other tips as well to help with awful sleeplessness. It is awful, right? It really is. I too have had to explore options due to menopausal hormone changes. When I wake up and when the deep breathing, etc., that Henriette has proposed does not work for me, change my attitude and give thanks for having the time to meditate, do my finger exercises. You know what? That's exactly it. It's shifting the context. It's taking ourselves away from, those thoughts about the stress and the anxiety about all the things that we don't have, and focusing back on something that's going to actually add value in our lives. That's a beautiful tip and a really good way to close this afternoon session. So thank you all for joining us, and we definitely hope to see you on social media. Keep in touch, and we look forward to engaging with all of you again. You can pop your closing comments into the chat box, and then, like we do on Zoom, when you're ready to leave, you just push that red leave button at the bottom of your screens, and you're welcome to say goodbye to us that way. And if you'd like to stay and have a chat, Henriette and I in the room for a few more minutes, feel free to stay and unmute, and we can have a conversation. But thank you all for joining, and we hope that the session's been useful. Goodbye.
Lovely. Bye-bye.